You see, there is something almost absurd about Blaise Pascal, and I mean that in the best possible way, because this was a man who helped create some of the mathematical tools that still shape the modern world. Probability, statistics, scientific reasoning, the language of uncertainty itself. And then he did something completely unexpected. He tried to use that uncertainty to answer one of the oldest questions in human history. Not how planets move, not how numbers work, not how physics behaves. God. And when I first discovered this, I genuinely thought I was misunderstanding something. Because surely one of history's greatest mathematical minds wasn't trying to calculate religion, but he was. And the deeper I went into this story, the stranger it became. Pascal was born in France in 1623. From an early age, people realized there was something unusual about him. While most children learned mathematics, Pascal seemed to discover it. By his late teens, he was already producing work that impressed leading scholars. Soon, he was inventing machines, conducting experiments, and solving problems that challenged some of Europe's greatest minds. Everything about his life pointed toward reason, logic, evidence, calculation, and then something happened. What fascinates me is that Pascal didn't lose faith in reason. He pushed reason as far as he possibly could, and eventually he ran into a wall. The wall was uncertainty, because no matter how brilliant he became, there was still questions he couldn't answer. Why are we here? Why does anything exist at all? What happens after death? And this is where Pascal becomes incredibly modern, because he wasn't satisfied with easy answers. He wanted certainty. The problem was that certainty refused to appear. In the 1650s, Pascal developed what would later become known as Pascal's wager. The argument was surprisingly simple. If God exists and you believe, the reward could be infinite. If God does not exist, the cost of belief may be limited. Viewed purely as a gamble, Pascal argued that belief appeared rational. For centuries, people have debated whether the argument succeeds. But the mathematics isn't the most interesting part. The psychology is. Because beneath all equations, I don't think Pascal was really trying to prove God. I think he was trying to survive uncertainty. And honestly, that feels incredibly human. We tend to imagine geniuses as people who have answers. Pascal feels like the opposite. He feels like a man who understood just how impossible some questions are. A man staring into a universe that refused to explain itself and trying desperately to find solid ground. The weird thing is that I don't even think you have to agree with Pascal to find this compelling. Because everyone makes wagers, not just religious ones. We make wagers about relationships, careers, dreams, the future. Every major decision in life is basically a bet placed without complete information. Pascal just happened to notice it before everyone else. Pascal died at only 39 years old. Yet his influence spread across mathematics, science, philosophy, and theology. His equations survived. His inventions survived. His ideas survived. But perhaps the reason he still feels relevant is simpler. He understood what uncertainty feels like. And uncertainty never went away. The thing that stayed with me wasn't Pascal's mathematics. I don't like mathematics. It wasn't even Pascal's wager. It was the image of a genius reaching the edge of knowledge and discovering that mystery was still waiting for him. There's something strangely comforting about that, because we live in a culture that constantly tells us more information will solve everything. More data, more research, more answers. Pascal spent his life collecting answers, and somehow ended up face to face with questions. Maybe that's why people still read him 4 centuries later. Not because he solved the mystery, but because he looked directly at it and refused to pretend it wasn't there.